So when we talk about the names of God, and this is just my analogy, right? When I talk about the names of God, for me, they're really just nickname character traits of God, right? That point us to something about God's character. So some of these nicknames, like Jehovah Nissi, the Lord is my banner, right? Or if you hear Jehovah Teskanu, that means the Lord is our righteousness. Or last week, you heard Jehovah Jireh, God is a provider, and it gets deeper, right? It gets deeper. But prior to God starting to tell us some of his nicknames, in the Old Testament, he was like huge, right? I mean, so God was being seen on the Old Testament as Elohim, huge. El Shaddai, huge, right? Right? El Shaddai, Elohim. What's another one? Adonai, right? Huge. All this is about the vastness of God. But God has nicknames. God has nicknames. So my first point, and I'm going quickly on purpose because she told me to. My first point is God's reputation precedes him. God's reputation precedes him, which really means that God's character traits goes before him. That's what it really means. And how do I know this? I know this because it's in you and it's in me, the testimony of the saints. That's what it's supposed to represent. And like my brother-in-law, he told me about Pastor Wilbur's character trait as Razor. Razor meant that when Pastor Wilbur walked into a room during his early days, BC days, he would go in the club just as clean, so they called him Razor. Corny, right? Razor sharp. That was one of his character names. And so that's one of the character traits that you would know him by. And just like that, somebody's talking about God's character traits. Or we should be. Psalms 107, verse 2 in the NIV says it like this. Let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. Those he redeemed from the hand of the foe or the enemy, right? The problem is too many of us are not telling our story. We're just not telling our story for whatever reason. I don't know what your reason might be, but some of us are not telling our story. So today, we are going to talk about one of God's character nicknames, and that nickname is Jehovah Rapha. Jehovah Rapha. The Lord that heals. The Lord that heals. But it doesn't just mean that, right? It doesn't just mean that. It means it's the Lord that mends, restores, and fixes broken things. So it's not just about a physical healing, ladies and gentlemen. It's about healing from a full perspective. Amen? And so one of the thoughts that I have, it's not a point, because then I would have, Pastor Lou, I would have too many points. But I got a thought, something that was in my head. Here's one of the thoughts that I have. God usually, not always, but he usually reveals his character when we are in a crisis. Whatever character trait that he needs to reveal, he reveals that when we are in a crisis. So let's talk about when God established himself as Jehovah Rapha in the Bible, right? So let's paint this picture. So without going into too much detail, God and Moses is having this conversation, right, about him leading his chosen people from Egypt, right? And Moses is saying he don't want to go, and God saying, you going. And he said, no, I don't want to go. God said, you going. I don't want to go. God, you going. You take whoever you want to take, your brother, but you going. And so Moses is on this quest to help the children of Israel out of bondage, and he's leading them out. And there's an army behind him chasing him in full pursuit. And he gets to this place called the Red Sea, Some people say Reed Sea, Red Sea. And there's nowhere to go. and God performs a miracle. God performs a miracle, and the children of Israel go through on dry land. God swallows up the army. They on the other side, they having a Holy Ghost shouting good time until they needed some water, right? Until they needed some water. And here's the hard part. They find water, and when they approach it, they realize they can't drink it. They can't do nothing with this water because it's polluted. I'm thinking in my mind, if I'm in the desert and it's 3 days and I haven't drunk any water, if I see water, I'm running. I'm sweaty, I'm hot, all I want to do is jump in it, but when they get close, I'm thinking there's dead fish in there. Something's really stinking, y'all. Something's going on, but they can't drink the water. It's polluted. So what happens? They get angry, they get anxious, and they start complaining, just like Christine said. We start complaining when we don't get what we want, when we want it. Anybody know anything about that? Yeah. Question, I got another question. Have you ever been this close to your a healing situation, only to find out it wasn't? You ever been that close? How you doing with that? You probably do. Some of y'all going through that right now. Y'all waiting on God to do something, right? And he ain't showed up yet. He has not showed up yet. I want to know how you doing. Are you starting to complain? Are you starting to get anxious? We all do it. We all do it. I got an example of how we all do it. So a couple of years ago, my wife of 41 years, it was 39 then, we wanted to go see Elevation Worship. So we planned a trip, and we talked to some friends that lived in North Carolina, Charlotte, and all set up, ready to go. We get there, we go to church with them. Afterwards, the plan was to go to Elevation Worship. We did that. What we didn't realize is that when you go to Elevation Worship, the line outside is like Walmart, super Walmart, just opened up for the first time in that town. And here we are standing in line like everybody else. To be honest, y'all, girlfriend was salty standing in the line. But it gets worse. We get to and God knows I'm not lying. We get to the very front of the line, and the gentleman says, ladies and gentlemen, the sanctuary is full, and we only have the overflow area open for your delight. We standing right here. He right here. Ooh, my God. For the first part of that service, I know my wife didn't hear nothing they were saying. I know because I was sitting next to her. And you know how you in service, you want to like, ooh, that was good. I wasn't even asking her was anything good. Because I could see on her face, I want to be in a sanctuary. But I tell y'all, it did turn out okay, right? Because Sarah Jace was speaking and she blessed our socks off. But it just goes to show you, Ann and I were this close to a drink of water, and it wasn't delivered. But God blessed us anyway. Another example, y'all don't know, but a few months ago, 2.5 months ago, my youngest sister, 53 years old, suffered a massive stroke, a massive stroke out of nowhere. And she is currently still fighting for her life. And one day, my niece called me, and I could hear in her voice that she was feeling a little defeated. And I'm going through this, right? I'm studying, trying to get ready. And God said, tell her what I told you. And so in my conversation with her, we were coming off of the heels of my sister just starting to talk again. And we were like, whoa, God is doing some incredible things. And we were celebrating, just like the children of Israel. I'm going somewhere. We were celebrating. We were happy. God was doing great things. And then, boom, something happened where it was a setback in her healing process. It was a setback. And so when she called me, I could hear it in her voice. And I was like, what's up? She's like, well, Mom's not doing well. And I was like, oh, man, I hear it. I understand. But listen, let me ask you something. we were talking differently last week when she was starting to talk, right? She was like, yeah, God was doing. I said, it's the same God. He hasn't gone anywhere. Let me tell y'all, stop praising God because things are good. He's good whether things are good or not. That's who he is. And just because things are not faring out when you want them to fare out doesn't mean that God's not working. He's always working. You see that screen? He's working behind the scenes. Oh yeah. So I had to remind her. No, it doesn't feel good. No, we do want God, Jehovah Rapha, to show up, and he is going to show up in his own time. He's going to show up the way he wants to show up. And just like we were having that conversation, the same thing was happening with the children of Israel. Just when they were this close to having their drink of water, their test in the desert was amplified. It was amplified because they couldn't drink the water. They called the place Mara, and they called it Mara why? Because the water was bitter. But God had a plan. And this is how we are. We get the same way, y'all. When we don't get our way, we get the same way. We get angry, we get ungrateful, we get selfish, we get inconsiderate, we act like we're privileged and we're undisciplined. All those. Same way. But we forget when it's somebody else that we're no different. So what happened to them? I'm glad you asked. Exodus, the 15th chapter, the 25th and the 26th verse reads like this. So Moses cried out to the Lord for help, and the Lord showed him a piece of wood. Moses threw it into the water, and it made the water look good to drink. It was there at Mara that the Lord set before them the following decree as a standard to test their faithfulness to him. Don't miss that. As a standard to test their faithfulness to him. Verse 26. He said, if you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, obeying his commands and keeping all his decrees, then I will not make you suffer any of the diseases I sent on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. That's where he set up Jehovah Rapha. That's where he set up Jehovah Rapha. So you might say, okay, Wink, Pastor Wink, so what? This doesn't look like a healing situation. This looks like God showed up and provided water for his people, right? And you know what my answer is going to be? No, not really. That was part of it. But God, what he did was he met an immediate need and a deeper core issue in the children of Israel's life. That's what he did. The immediate need was the water, but the condition that he was trying to heal in them was the bitterness in their hearts. That's what he was dealing with. And so here's another thought I have. The trials that we have are standards to test our faithfulness to God. Shows us where we are. God is not trying to find out where you are. He's trying to let you know you ain't where you think you are. That's what he's trying to let you know. You thought you trusted me, but here comes a situation you ain't really trusted me. Here comes a time where you say you want healing because I ain't healing you in your time frame. You think I'm not showing up, so now you got an attitude? Now you're talking about God ain't even trying to help me out and all this stuff. So we all have core below the surface issues that God wants to heal us from, right? We all have them. But he told us in verse 26 that unless we listen to his voice, unless we obey his commands, unless we do what's right and follow his decrees, we're probably not going to get a lot of the healing that we're looking for. Right? We're probably not going to get a lot of healing that we're looking for. So that cracks the code, ladies and gentlemen. That's the answer to the test. And Pastor Hector explained last week when he introduced us to Jehovah Jireh that it not only means that the Lord provides, but it also means that the Lord sees. He sees where he needs to provide before he gets there. So that means that if you're praying for God to provide something for you, God already sees, okay, I'm going to do that down here. He's here. I'm there. That's where they need to go. The process of getting from here to God might take you a little bit. Don't get weary. Don't get weary. He's there. He's there. So some of the things that we're facing, some of the troubles that we face may be God's tool that he's using to bring us to triumph. Some of them things may be God's tools to bring us to triumph. So, another thought that I have, I got a lot of thoughts. And y'all say this with me. Y'all say this with me. God sees my healing. Yeah, he sees my healing. And the reason that I know he sees my healing is because he wants me to be whole. He don't just want the healing to take place. That's surface, right? If we go back to the water situation, God knew they needed water, but God knew that they needed the bitterness to come out of their hearts too. He knew that. So Proverbs 4 verse 3 says this. It says, keep thine heart, and this is the King James Version, right? Keep thine heart with all diligence. In other words, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it, that same heart, are the issues of life, right? Out of that same heart are the issues of life. And in 1 Samuel, the 6th chapter, 17th verse, it says this. And it's the last half of that verse. It says, people judge the outward appearance. God's looking deep inside our hearts, right? He's looking deep. Talking a lot about hearts this morning. So here's my second point. The biggest obstacle in our healing process is the condition of our hearts. The biggest obstacle in our healing process is the conditions of our hearts. And if Angie, if you would put that caption up, if you have it. Okay, you don't have it? Okay. So what the caption says, the issues of our hearts keep us and God apart. The issues that we have in our heart, they keep us and God apart. And the reason that I know this is true, is because we haven't made him Lord of our lives, right? We haven't made him Lord of our lives. What that means is we're not listening, we're not obeying, we're not doing what's right, and we're not keeping his decrees. We're not making him Lord. And at the end of the day and at the end of this story, it's all really about obedience. It's about we have a hard time with being obedient. We do. And y'all quiet because y'all know it's true. I'm one of y'all. If I wasn't speaking, I'd be like, I ain't saying nothing either. Because I have a hard time obeying. That's why I'm speaking this, because God said, this is for you. It's hard to be obedient all the time. Come on, y'all. That's why we always have to go back and say, God, I'm sorry. That's why, because it's hard for us to continue to do the right thing. But instead of, God being this big old vast being, right, that we're afraid of, God wants a personal relationship with us where we know and love him for who he is and what he does and what he's provided, right? That's what we really want out of God. So point number 3, and I'm around the corner. I'm almost done. Y'all ain't gonna believe this, but I'm almost done. Point number 3, the things that we need healing from are often the things we look or act most like. Y'all get that? Most of the time, the things that we need to be healed from, we looking and acting just like that. So if you're if you're the type of person you're angry, I mean, for whatever reason, and I'm not minimizing why you're angry. There's a lot of reasons why people are angry. But if you're a person that's angry, we're not going to put you on the door as a greeter. No, we're not going to do that to our first-time attenders. We can't do that. So we're not going to put you there. If you looking for somebody to put in a headlock, we're not putting you on security. We're just not doing that. If you're the type of person whose name always comes up in gossip, that might mean that you need healing from gossip, right? So take a look at this heart. There's a lot of things in that heart, right? There's a lot of things that need to be pure. We need to be pure from. God need to purge some things, but they sitting there. And I tell you what, God really wants to do something in all of our hearts. He really does. And I don't know if your stuff is there or not, but this is what I'm going to tell you today. That it wasn't by chance or by mistake or just that somebody rolled the dice and said, oh, Pastor Wink, you're going to be speaking on Jehovah Rapha on July the 10th. No, that was orchestrated by God for this season that I'm in. We have people that's sitting here this morning that know God as Jehovah Rapha. They haven't just heard. It's not a name that they just heard about. They lived it, or they're living it, right? Got any testimonies in the house? Anybody been healed? Anybody been healed by God? Anybody in the healing process, right? And so what I'm saying is, as you wait for God to heal whatever he's healing, just know it's not just surface for God. God is working in a multiplicity of ways while he's dealing with your immediate need. You know, I told my niece when I was talking to her, I haven't talked to you this much in years. Ann and I are also her godparents. So although her mom is down right now, God is building a relationship with me and her. And it's incredible. It's incredible. So what am I saying? I'm saying that when you calling all your friends that know God and you're saying, pray for me because I'm in a situation, that's cool and nothing wrong with that. But just know that your prayer might not go the way you want it to go, but it's going to go the way God wanted to go. It's going to turn out God's way. And you need to know that. So be patient. Be patient. Wait, I say, on the Lord. He got you. He's got you. But what I do know in closing, see, I told y'all, look, in closing, this is what I know. The healing is a process. This is what I know. I know that if you want God to be Lord, if you're striving for God to be Lord in your life, the purging begins in our heart when we start making him that. When we start saying, God, I want you to take over completely. I surrender to you. And your heart can go from that heart. And when the purging starts, things start dropping off, right? Things start dropping off. And that's the way the heart starts to shape. And that's what God starts to mold you and make you look more like him, right? I'm asking you this morning, as we close out, I'm asking you to look at your heart this morning. I'm asking you to take a look at your heart. Take a moment and ask God to touch your heart and to start the purging that needs to happen. And if you make him Lord, you're going to, if you're striving to make him Lord, you're going to have to make the corrective action that you need to make do your part, right? And you know what your part is. Your part is to listen, to obey, to do what's right, and to follow his decrees. If you do your part, God is going to do his part, right? So I'm asking you this morning to look inside, look past what you're asking God to do and say, God, what else are you doing? Ask God, what else is he doing? And if you're serious about it, I want you to start making your way down to this altar with me. I'm with you. Believe me, I'm with you. I got stuff up there. And I want God to help me. I really, really do. And I know some of you want God to help you as well. And so if you come this morning, if you feel led by God to come this morning to this altar, I'm not asking you to tell anybody about your heart issues. Not at all. But I am asking you to confess to God what they are and start that process there. Amen. Right? Start that process there and watch what God do if you do your part. Watch what he does. Watch what he does. He really wants to heal us, but more than healing us, he wants us whole. He wants us whole.